Hey everyone, Nubkeks here, and in today's video we're talking about the Ulduar Timewalking raid. Ulduar, of course, first came out in Wrath of the Lich King. It's not the first time they've brought this back, but this is the first time that it has showed up in Shadowlands. So we went in yesterday, actually, with about 20 people, and from the guild, both team members and friends of team members, and we cleared through it. There's actually some pretty good loot in there, so this is possibly worth doing, potentially very worth doing for your characters. There are some excellent trinkets in there, because certainly good trinkets have been a little bit hard to find for some specs in Shadowlands so far, so it could be worth checking out for those. The item level of everything is 200. So yeah, for me personally, I didn't get a single upgrade. There was nothing good there for me. It was just a bit of fun. My girlfriend came along though. I think she got 9 item levels overall, so it was really good for her. So like a more casual player, this could be a really, really good source of extra loot. Because as we all know, loot is more scarce in Shadowlands than it has been in recent expansions, and that's been for a long, long time. So it's definitely worth doing from that perspective. What I wanted to do in this video though was, just take a little bit of a look at the raid. It's kind of funny to go back and see these old raids and see how game design has or hasn't changed. The really noticeable thing, the first thing that really struck me about Ulduar was this big vehicle opening segment, right? Where everyone's getting into demolishers and siege engines and bikes. You're zooming around the place with the vehicle control interface. You're destroying buildings, sieging buildings. There's all these enemies. It's really bizarre. I actually kind of... okay. I both love and hate it. I hate it because I think the actual gameplay of it isn't very good, let's be honest. It's kind of clunky. It's kind of slow. It isn't great, but I also kind of love it because it is just so different. It's so different from your typical raiding gameplay. And certainly in this context, compared to, we're going into a mythic raid and we're sort of like tryharding, sweaty tryhards on these raid bosses, it's kind of fun to come in for this casual raid and have this wacky vehicle segment to just kind of mess around with. You're not really going to fail it or anything. It just takes a bit of time and just sort of zip around with your friends, have a bit of fun. That's a really cool thing as well to have in a raid. I thought that was quite cool. And you have to admire the ambition of the developers to throw something in like this that is so different, so out of the ordinary. You can understand why they haven't done anything like it again, though. But yeah, I just thought it's quite something. It really is quite noticeable. One of the other things that really, really struck me about the raid as well, that's very different, a small thing, but it gives a very different feel to the raid from what they do now, is that a lot of the bosses are just kind of there, right? So for example, what's her name? Aurija or something? The big stone lady with the cats that's patrolling around in the middle of the antechamber, right? Well, she's just walking around and there's a whole bunch of ads around. She can patrol into you when you're fighting some ads. And the line between what is a boss and what is trash is kind of blurred. It's a lot more blurred, whereas in modern raids, oftentimes the boss won't even appear until you actually kill the trash. So Shriekwing's a great example, right? You're going to fight some of the Stone Legion dudes. Once they're defeated, then Shriekwing arrives and you can fight Shriekwing. Or Lady Enerva Darkvein, again, is the same thing. Council Blood is the same thing. All these bosses in Castle Nathria, right? Stone Legion General, same thing. You go in, there's a bunch of trash in the room, you kill all the trash, then the bosses do a little bit of roleplay, and then they come down and they're targetable. And there's this very, very clear line between, okay, we've been clearing out the trash, and this is just really, inconsequential content, and now here is the boss, here's the actual real encounter. Yeah, back in Ulduar, it's much more blurred. And you can easily sort of, the two sort of blend in together. I even think in Mythic Plus also sort of contributes to this, or maybe it doesn't contribute, but it's either a symptom or a feature, I don't know. But in Mythic Plus, you've got Tyrannical and Fortified, which again sort of, yeah, I feel like it's sort of a symptom of this way of looking at the game where bosses and trash mobs are these entirely different, they're sort of worlds apart. That's not quite the case in Ulduar. Like I said, the stuff sort of blends together. Some of the trash mobs are kind of harder than some of the bosses. Some of the bosses involve a whole bunch of trash mobs. It's kind of interesting. I definitely felt like there was a bit of a feel to it where it did feel a bit more open, right? Rather than going from individual boss encounter to individual boss encounter, it kind of felt like you were more just fighting through this massive zone. And again, that intro part with the vehicles contributed to that as well. You're fighting through this open zone, and yeah, there's some boss enemies and some regular enemies, but you're kind of just rampaging around and killing all this stuff. It was intriguing. It's definitely intriguing, and it's curious how that has been something that has changed. Let's take a look at some of the bosses then, and let's talk about what was hard or not hard. The first boss was Flame Leviathan, and again, this kind of just carries on that previous vehicle segment. You are fighting the boss in the vehicles. You need to use vehicle abilities to defeat him. It's kind of just pure chaos. You're kind of messing around, but the boss does go down. I was on a bike, and I think I was supposed to be able to hook up these blue canisters and feed them to my dudes, but that didn't work. The oil spills seemed to do friendly fire damage, and they would like kill players and destroy vehicles in just a few seconds, so that they were doing huge damage to friendly players. So yeah, for the most part, I was just kind of running around and couldn't do anything, but it was certainly an interesting boss. Again, much like that vehicle segment, just a little bit weird, a little bit different. And I kind of, yeah, I like it actually, I do. The next boss we fought was Ignis, the Furnace Master. And he didn't do a whole lot of much. He kind of knock you up and interrupt your cast every now and then, but we just, appropriately enough, I guess you could say, we just burn the boss down, just shoot the boss, there's some ads, kind of ignore him, just hit the boss, and he died. The next boss, Razor Scale, again, really ties into that sort of open world sort of feel to the raid. Certainly this intro part of the raid, because you go into this segment and there's just a bunch of trash mobs spawning in during this boss encounter. So you're just fighting off those trash mobs, killing them off. Eventually the harpoon guns become usable. Activate them all to pull the boss down. The boss dies then almost instantly. It doesn't do a whole lot. But yeah, it just feels like this big open area that you kind of wander into, like you could just walk out of that area if you wanted to mid-fight. There's no door that closes behind you. So it just has the feel of an open arena. That was kind of the notable thing for me about this fight. XT002 Deconstructor is the next boss. This guy actually was quite dangerous. I don't know if it was because we did hard mode, which is where you kill the heart. I think a lot of us didn't know what he actually did, and we burned our CDs on pull. Then he heals to full when you destroy the heart, which is not so good. But the thing that he did is temper tantrums. Actually did a ton of damage. Like those things hit really, really hard. So we're kind of winging it. And they definitely sort of rip you apart. So that's definitely one to watch out for. Just prepare a bit for those temper tantrums. Apart from that, it's mostly just stand there and nuke the boss. But yeah, defensive healing CDs on that. Actually kind of important because he does hit hard. The next boss that we did was I think it's the Council of Iron is the name of the boss. So we killed a Steelbreaker first, the big guy. Then we killed Stormcaller Brundir, the small guy. And then we fought Runemaster Malgame last. I think that this boss seemed very hard, weirdly so, specifically in the final phase. So I feel like it might be bugged in the tuning. But basically there are these little elemental ads that spawn in, and they explode for absolutely massive damage if they reach you. So I don't know. I guess we just didn't know what we were doing. You have to, fear them or root them or knock them back or something like that. If they reach your raid, you are in serious trouble. So yeah, definitely watch out for that. I think it killed like half of us. The portal that spawns them spawned right on top of us. We didn't know what they were, and half of us were dead in about a blink of an eye. But yeah, apart from that, the boss is fine, but just watch out for that. That's all. Next up is Kologarn? Kologarn, yeah. I really like this. I think this boss is super cool. So it's just this giant torso with his giant arms. He comes up and you're fighting the top half of his body. I like it a lot, I have to say. I really do. You kill one of his arms. It smashes into a bunch of ads. You kill off those ads. He's shooting eye lasers from people that they have to run away from. I thought this was a really awesome boss. My favorite part about this actually is actually the end where the boss dies. His body falls backwards and becomes a bridge into the next part of the area. It's the sort of thing that you would expect to be really bugged and not to work right, but it actually works fine. It works really well. It's really smooth transition, which again, I thought was really impressive, and also once again ties into this sort of feeling that you are fighting through this raid zone. You're not fighting a bunch of raid bosses specifically, but you're going through a raiding zone, and there just happen to be these big enemies in the zone. He feels like he's part of the zone, which, yeah, I thought he's awesome. This is a really cool boss. Definitely very iconic. Speaking of feeling like you're in the zone, Aurija is the next boss. And one of our players was AFK, tried to run to catch up with the raid group, ran right past her and pulled her in on top of us while we're fighting some ads. So this is the official hard mode of this boss. But yeah, also, like I was saying, this also feels like a boss that is really just part of the zone. I honestly, we don't really know what she does. We just kind of did DPS. I think I lagged out for a massive chunk of the fight. It wasn't even responding. Whatever. She doesn't seem to do too much. There's cats jumping around. The best thing about her is the death sound. Very iconic. Very iconic.
You ready for the loveliest sound file in the entire game? I love it when she dies.
I'm gonna say she does the impression of you.
It's not an impression of me, you wanker.
The next boss then is Hodir. This boss actually feels a lot more like a modern raid boss than a lot of the other bosses in the instance. That's for sure. Like you kind of fight him in his own little room, but just the mechanics that he has going on, like he's dropping in these pools on the ground to move out of. There are friendly ads. You can break free of ice to save them if you want to. One annoying thing for sure is that you build up a debuff if you're standing still. So you have to keep jumping or moving throughout the fight so you don't build up this debuff to kill you, which again, like it adds an element of difficulty, but it's more just an annoyance than anything else, right? Just get the debuff and you have to jump and stop your casts. Yeah, kind of sucks. Then he's got his big mechanic. I don't remember what it's called, but basically he makes like the room cave in, but it puts this big swirly on the floor, or a big circle on the floor, then a whole bunch of snow falls in onto that circle, right? And then you have a couple of seconds to step in on top of that snow pile while the rest of the room falls in. So it's kind of intriguing, right? It's kind of, okay, he's doing his big cast, wait until the safe moment, step into the safe area, then the rest of the room explodes. I feel like that's such a modern mechanic. That's the sort of thing that you see show up in a whole bunch of different fights. I mean, Council of Blood, for example, has something very similar. If you leave Stavros to last, yeah, I think it's Stavros to last, that has something very, very similar. Yeah, it's just a really modern mechanic. So I thought that was intriguing. I felt like with the having to jump and move out of the stuff, there was just a lot more movement in this fight compared to other fights where you literally just stand there, sort of AFK doing DPS. In this fight, you're moving a lot more, which gave it a much more modern WoW feel. The next boss we fought was Thorim. I was in the downstairs group, and I have to say, I think this boss is probably a lot better if you're in the side group, the corridor group, right? Because the way this works is half of your raid team goes into a corridor, and they have to fight through a gauntlet to get up to the boss. If they reach him, then the boss jumps down into the arena, and then they jump down into the arena, and then you have the boss fight. I was in the arena team, which meant we just sort of stay down there. There's a whole bunch of ads, and you just sort of kill the ads. And there's really nothing going on here, at least on time walking. There's nothing much going on. It's just sort of AFK, kill some ads. So yeah, definitely being in the gauntlet group is the fun way to go. I think that's for sure. When the boss comes down, again, he does a fair whack of damage with some of his spells, but just sort of move out of the spells, fight the boss. One thing that was definitely intriguing or weird about it is that his wife is fighting, or his supposed wife is fighting alongside him, and she's doing casts and things like that. But because she's not actually hostile, it's kind of weird, and she's not tracked in the boss frame or anything like that. She's doing frostbolt volleys and stuff, and I just thought it was intriguing with the UI that I have. It was actually really difficult to see when that stuff was coming out. It's the sort of thing I think that nowadays would be much more blatant and obvious in terms of being able to track that and respond to it. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, definitely arena side boring, gauntlet side probably more interesting. The next boss is Freya. The weird thing about Freya is that you fight her in this gigantic area full of all these plant enemies and druid enemies and treant enemies. So you have to go around and kill 3 elders around the side of the room to remove a bunch of buffs from her. Otherwise, you're fighting her on hard mode, which would probably be total chaos. When you fight her on easy mode with all that stuff dead, again, you literally just stand there and you kill her in a matter of seconds. There's nothing going on. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's interesting if you leave stuff up and things like that. But yeah, the boss just falls over dead. I think people were laughing and saying, this isn't how this boss used to be. This is very different. So yeah, some tuning issues there. The next boss we fought was the Leviathan. I'm not sure what you call this. Mimiron, basically. But yeah, again, this boss also had a pretty modern feel to me. We triggered it on hard mode. So there's fire on the floor you have to watch out for. There's missiles and stuff going around. I died like an idiot because I didn't know about the big Gatling gun attack that the boss has. It was the boss at the end of the Oh my gosh, I've forgotten the name of it. That's the Undermine or something? I don't know, whatever. The dungeon in BFA, anyway, where you fought, again, a boss that even looked like this, that would spin around. You do a Gatling gun and spin around. So I didn't realize what he was doing, and I got killed by that. But yeah, the boss spins around. You have to run around the boss and not get shot by the laser barrage, I think is what it's called. So I thought that's a fairly modern boss design. And then quite cool, you know, at the end, the boss, all of them come together in this giant transformer robot and you fight them. Really badass, actually. I really like this one. I thought it was interesting, or how you have to leave up these little fire robot ads. Don't kill the fire robot ads. The fire bots, let them go and extinguish the fire. Yeah, it was cool. I mean, the fire graphic on the floor looks absolutely horrendous. It looks really bad. And it's kind of weird how it chases players automatically, this strangely sentient fire. But this is a really good boss. Like, this is really, really cool. And it would be really fun, I think, for them to do a boss like this. Again, you know, bringing that sort of transformer. All three of the boss stages that you fight come together in one at the end. I think that'd be awesome for them to bring back again. Yeah, this boss is badass. Really, really is. The next boss, General Vezax, is very boring. As far as I can tell, for the most part, this boss doesn't do anything. Except for one mechanic that's actually meaningful, where he marks a player with this sort of vampiric aura. And what this does is it sends out these pulses, and almost instantly, those pulses will one-shot any DPS that's near him. I mean, maybe a tank could live a couple of shots, but DPS players just get one shot by this aura, and it heals the boss. So yeah, basically, I think you're just supposed to spread out really far, so that the aura won't hit anyone, and you just stand there and you tunnel the boss. I died to the aura. So I went and I, you know, left the raiders to it, left the team to it, and I went and made a cup of tea. And yeah, I picked up my loot when it came back. It's not good. It's not good. I found, like, if, you know, apart from that one thing, which is difficult, it's really hard to just see that visually, the thing. Like I said, I think you just literally spread out far enough that nobody gets hit, and you just stand there and AFK kill the boss, and he doesn't really do anything. Yeah, pretty bad boss. Then the final boss was Yogg-Saron, which, again, we did it with all the keepers active because we're lazy as hell, and perhaps because it was on that super easy mode then. Either way, though, I felt like this boss was really, really undertuned as well, and I don't know if that is because of the keepers or if it's just really some weird scaling issue, but this boss just flopped over. Kill all the tentacles, go into Yogg-Saron's mind, kill the stuff in the mind, come out and kill Yogg-Saron. I'm confused about how to feel about this boss, because a lot of people would tell you how much they hate N'Zoth, and this is basically Mythic N'Zoth, so I don't know. But people love this boss, but they hate Mythic N'Zoth. It's all very confusing, isn't it? It's all very, well, what are we supposed to like or not? Anyway, for me, I'm obviously memeing, but yeah, this boss is certainly, it seems to be very undertuned right now, which is unfortunate, but you can really see how this was a very cool boss back in the day. Just really awesome, probably one of the best bosses they ever made. I just think it's super, super cool, you know, fighting through his mind, and there are different minds that you could go into. I think that is really cool as well. And then the final sort of burn phase. Yeah, I dig it. I think, again, like I said, Mythic N'Zoth is basically this fight as well. You know, it's a very modern sort of boss design that definitely inspired a lot of their designs in the future. Yeah, it's a cool boss. It's a cool boss. And that was the end of our Ulduar adventure. Let me know if you gave it a go. I imagine a lot of people will have been doing it this week for that loot. There's gonna be some nice upgrades in there for a lot of different players, or it's just a bit of fun to go in and to try it out, kind of revisit it, get some of that nostalgia in if you played like Wrath of the Lich King. Yeah, let me know what you think, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you all next time. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.